since 2012, since cannabis was legalized in Colorado. I've been cooking with cannabis medicinally in medicinal states like California. Since before then, 1996 is when we actually started the medical legalization in California. But I really came onto the scene in a big way in 2012, 2013, 14, when I started inventing new products, starting with tasteless canna oil and canna butter that you could put into your food to infuse your food with cannabis, but without the cannabis taste, because we realized early on that the herbaceous taste of edibles was a turnoff to a lot of people, but a lot of people still wanted to be able to eat their cannabis or ingest it orally instead of smoking it, and they just didn't want the taste. So we figured out how to remove the taste. Flash forward 2020, 2021, we have come a long way. My mission has always been to make the cannabis consumption experience, specifically edibles, but now also inhalable products, simple and easy for everyone. You know, not everybody wants to be loud about their cannabis consumption. Not everybody wants to be smoking in the middle of the street or an apartment building, you know, that people know that they're all about weed. They also don't really want to taste the cannabis taste in their food. They want the food to taste like food and not be overpowered by the herbaceous plant taste. So we did a lot of things over the past several years to really address that mission. In addition to the tasteless canna oil and canna butters, I'm also author of a cookbook called The 420 Gourmet, which is one of the best-selling cannabis cookbooks on Amazon right now. It's published by HarperCollins. It's in its second printing already. I'm very pleased to tell you guys that. And what the cookbook does is, in addition to be a great cookbook, easy to use, so you don't even have to use cannabis in the recipes. You can use oil instead of canna oil or butter instead of canna butter. It also explains to you all about the plant, and it teaches dosing. And we realized early on then that dosing was also a challenge. So a lot of people who wanted to cook with cannabis, first they didn't want to deal with the taste. Then they were afraid of the dosing. And they're like, all right, how do we know how potent this cannabis oil or canna butter is, or basically how potent each one of the edible items we're making is? So I worked with a lab in Oakland, California, and came up with the THC calculator, which is very different than every other THC calculator on or app through any of the app stores or online. It's the only calculator that takes into account the loss factors along the way when you are infusing cannabis or hemp into butter or oil. So cannabis and hemp are sister plants. We've got cannabis, we've got hemp. They look the same, they smell the same. You would not be able to tell the difference unless somebody told you that they are cannabis or hemp, and or when you actually ingested them or smoked them, if one got you high and one didn't. Because cannabis has THC in it, which is psychoactive. You'll feel those effects within your body, in your head, a head high, a body high. But CBD, which is in hemp, is not. The hemp CBD is not as non-psychoactive. It does have a lot of medicinal benefits to it, but it's non-psychoactive. So we decided that we were going to go take two tracks. One was the cannabis side, where we're actually very involved in the cannabis industry. We're licensing this new technology that I have in that industry. But on the hemp side, we also producing hemp products that help people get their hemp if they don't want to smoke it and they want to ingest it. Arguably, when you ingest CBD, the amount of CBD that gets into your system is a bit less than when you smoke it, but a lot of people don't like to smoke. So CBD gummies, for example, have become a big thing, and ingestible CBD has become a big thing. And one of the ingredients that I ended up inventing this past year was a cannabis ingredient first. It's called culinary cannabis, which is cannabis that I've been able to remove all the compounds responsible for the odor and taste of the cannabis, and then make that herb through a process that's rooted in molecular gastronomy taste like any herb I want: oregano, basil, thyme, even a spice like cinnamon. We have rosemary. So on the cannabis side, we're licensing out the technology in legal states so people can actually get culinary cannabis to cook with it. You can literally sprinkle our oregano on your pizza and get high from it in 20 to 30 minutes, because that has a very quick onset time as well. Then we said, well, a lot of people may not want to do THC or cannabis. Let's do the same thing with CBD. So we invented a product, same exact product. We're now calling it Scarboroughfaire. For all of you Simon and Garfunkel lovers out there, that's where you took the name. This literally is culinary hemp. It smells and tastes just like oregano. It has 12 milligrams of CBD per quarter teaspoon. We even have a little label in there that tells you how many milligrams it is. And we're selling this all day and all night on our website. It's CBD. It's actual cannabis flower that is naturally chock full of CBD that you can use to infuse your food with a hemp flower product. The beauty of this product is it's the only CBD product on the market, edible product on the market, that is Farm Bill compliant. So what the Farm Bill says is that companies cannot infuse food with CBD and sell it to consumers. For example, I cannot sell you infused ketchup. If I took CBD drops and stuck it into ketchup, and it was CBD ketchup, I'm not legally allowed to sell you that. This, however, is 100% hemp flower. And the Farm Bill states that you can sell legally hemp flower all throughout the country, even all throughout the world. So what we did was you took the flower, again, removed all the compounds responsible for the odor and taste of cannabis, and then through a process rooted in molecular gastronomy, we're able to make this taste like any herb we want. In this case, this is no oregano. We have Rosemary Jane coming out next month. So now people can use our culinary hemp to actually get their daily dose of CBD if they want to. So that's what I'm here to talk about. I'm pretty much done with the presentation. So if you guys have any questions, please, I'm open to any and everything.
Okay, very good, Jeff. I appreciate that. Okay, let me define this for you. And what's going to happen now is you and I, Jeff and Elton, plus Dr. John, we're going to have a little panel discussion about health, foods, CBD, and what it could mean for the future of diet and food and consumption. And I just posed this because we had a previous guest on, and earlier today, I wish you joined us for that as well. But he talked about the issue of regulation and regulating CBD and hemp, and he also brought up dosing, the elements of how we make. Because I mean, and I pose this because, and it's a perfect content, that food has a medicinal value. All foods have a medicinal value. You know, some foods have a greater medicinal value than other foods. It's like ginger. You know, people have been using ginger, you know, in ginger ale to calm issues of our stomachs. I mean, and ginger is an amazing, ginger is an amazing food, just like garlic is an amazing food. And both of those have incredible benefits, incredible values. Now, and also CBD has incredible value. It has some healing elements to it. Now, in California, there's medically prescribed hemp or CBD. And now, and so for instance, I wonder, you know, what the growth of, that's another question, but let's say to the point of food and both of your comments about foods that we eat, and you were talking about infusing foods with hemp and CBD and the long-term benefits for our overall states of mind, combined with different foods. Over your right shoulder, Chef, you have a picture of a coconut. Now, you know, you have a picture of a coconut, right? Yeah, so I've never thought of coconut or CBD infused coconut, and the benefits of that, and the taste for that, and the medicinal value. So now, I don't know if Dr. John would know about this, but I'm just going to ask for comment and descriptions and discussions regarding foods that we know of. Let's say to that subject, medicinal value for foods, beneficial medicinal value for foods. If there are any traits that you know of that have a tremendous medicinal value for the foods that we're eating. I'll start with you, Chef Jeff. Okay.
Are you asking me that question, or are you asking Dr. John?
I'm asking you that question. Medicinally, well, the benefits for foods that way.
I would tell you, there are many. Of course, there are many beneficial foods out there. Every food we eat, for the most part, aside from sugar, and sugar is poison to the body. If all you guys don't know that already, but many foods obviously are beneficial. You know, when I cook, I've cooked for a lot of patients as well that are suffering from terminal illness, etc. and every one of them has a different diet. And of course, sugar is the one thing that comes out of the diet. It's one of the things that is an inflammatory, etc. Anything that's natural, natural foods are specifically designed to help our body. And if you look at those foods, they'll even teach you by the way they look as to what they're supposed to help within your body. Give carrots, for example. You cut a carrot, looks like an eye. We know that it's good for your eyes, right? So natural foods are very good for us. There's almost nothing natural that I won't use in my recipes. This here is a lime coconut smoothie behind me. That's infused. That one happens to be infused with THC. What we like to do is we like to, obviously cook healthy, create healthy recipes, and then infuse them with THC and or CBD, but we do not use concentrates, for example, when we do our infusions. 95% of the chefs out there will use a concentrate. They'll take either a cannabis oil that, it's a viscous oil that's created from the trichomes of the plant in a manufacturing plant, or wax or other types of concentrates, mix them into butter and oil, and that's how they infuse their food. And we don't do that. I take the plant directly. I even grow my own to make sure it's 100% clean. I take the plant. I clean the plant. I put it through a process that I invented for cleaning cannabis and hemp to make sure that we're removing not only contaminants, but also all the compounds responsible for the herbaceous taste, like terpenes, flavonoids, chlorophyll. Now, there are benefits to the terpenes and the flavonoids and the chlorophyll, but not when you're cooking with them. Because, for example, the terpenes are very volatile between 100 and 215 degrees Fahrenheit. When those terpenes burn off, they leave behind a residue. That residue is actually that burnt taste that you taste in your food. Nobody wants burnt terpenes. They're not healthy for you. They're no longer terpenes. So by removing those terpenes before we even start creating our canna butter or canna oil, we're removing not only the flavor, but also the bad qualities that you would get from burnt off terpenes, as well as burnt off chlorophyll or flavonoids. So, when we cook, everything that we do is very health oriented. We want our food to be as clean as possible. We want our products to be as clean as possible. And then when you ingest them, you feel 100% comfortable that you're ingesting really good food.
Very good. That's a great answer. And it's good. It fits right into what we're looking to do or evaluate. Now, because in all foods, there's an essence of the food, and there's probably some overhang of what the food was purely meant to do. And also some elements of combination for the foods and optimum combinations. I'm talking about optimum, and we're still looking for those things, because when you combine one food with another food, the purity of those two foods, and you take it to an optimum combination level. Is that essentially, and we don't know about some of these foods in their purest state. Their purest state, what the essence of the food is able to do, and the healing element of that food to the extent that we get to optimum health. Wow, great comments. Let me sidebar, Dr. John. I need to hear from you about sugars, in terms of fruit sugars, such as, and the optimum capacity for those in our systems. And I'll tell you why I'm asking that question. I've I've been playing around with peaches, with peaches. Now, peaches are a great food, and the sugars from peaches are very high sugar, very high sugar. But what would be, any ideas about the capacity for the pure sugars, and what could be the damaging aspects to that and those things? Do you have anything for it?
Well, my first comment is, I hope Chef Jeff will not use the term sugar is poison in the body. You may have to clarify that or be more careful, because that is a term used by people who want to sell artificial sweeteners, which have not been found to have any useful beneficial effect. So you have to be careful. Now, what is sugar? How did sugar get this bad name? Because of the word association of blood sugar being bad, and therefore table sugar is bad. They are completely different elements or molecules. There are three simple sugars in nature: glucose, galactose, and fructose. That there are three double sugars: sucrose, maltose, and lactose. Now, so there are 6 different sugars. So when you say sugar is poison, which one are you talking about and why? That is point number 1. Now, you asked me about the fruit sugar. That is
Right.
sucrose, which is 50% glucose and 50% fructose. So it is not a simple sugar. It is a double sugar, two molecules of simple sugars. In the body, in the intestine, it is separated into glucose and fructose. The glucose is absorbed faster. The fructose takes time. So if you eat fruit sugar, if you eat fruit, your glycemic index, that is the total how fast the blood sugar rises, will be slower compared to if you eat the same amount of, say, mashed potatoes, because mashed potatoes strictly glucose. So that will elevate your blood sugar faster than the equal amount of fruit sugar or sucrose or table sugar. So then it depends on the quantity. Where we can identify how much sugar or how much mineral is in each and every food you eat. What we don't know is how much of that is needed at that time in your body, because we have no way of knowing what is the balance of nutrient in your, how much calcium do you have, how much iron you have, how much vitamin C you have in your body already. We have no clue. We know how much is in the food, but we don't know how much the body needs. So how do we balance it out? So as the chef is saying, we need a variety. We need eat whatever is natural as much as possible. Each time you increase the concentration of what you eat higher than what is naturally available, human body cannot control the amount because there is no experience with it. How do you control the quantity? This is where, if you are going to eat fruit, peach, for example, there's nothing wrong with any fruit. You cannot blame one fruit. It is too much sugar, too little sugar. It depends on how much you consume. And to reduce the consumption, again, let me go back to one thought process. That is, in nature, if you look at all the foods available there, to get nutrients for an adult human being, is there something there that he can eat without chewing? Almost everything requires chewing. Why? Because when you chew, you are releasing nutrients at a level, at a rate where the taste and smell receptors can identify, record, send it to the brain control center, how much is going down. If you do that, you can enjoy your peach. Don't blend it, don't puree it, chew it and enjoy it.
Great comment back.
Let me
Now,
just,
I agree.
you're
Now,
right.
this is going to be very interesting because, I mean, chemically, food supplement wise, and directions of what we're trying and need to do with that. So go ahead, Chef Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I should not have made a blanket statement, sugar is poison. I'm talking commercial sugar. White sugar is 100% poison. We should never be eating that. I don't care what anybody says. That's not something that somebody should be putting into their body.
Not yet,
there are plenty of other sugars. There are plenty of other ways to obviously add sugar. And we add sugar into our food all the time, but it's not processed sugar or white sugar. We'll use honeys. We'll use pure maple syrups. We'll use fruit sugars. We'll use fruits. I do agree. I think, chewing is incredibly important. I think that, when you're talking about the health benefits, you can't just swallow a whole peach and assume your body is going to metabolize it the way it's supposed to be. That's why the doctor is suggesting chewing it, because you're releasing all the compounds within that peach that are going to help you. Sure, it's nice and sweet and it tastes amazing, but if you look at it, on a deeper level, you're talking about, getting the nutrients out of that peach in addition to the sugary taste that helps you enjoy it. So I agree 100%. So I take back the blanket statement, sugar is poison, but I'll replace it with commercial processed sugar, like white sugar is poison.
Well,
Do you agree
here's
with
the
that,
point though
Doctor?
too. Here's the point though too. Natural fruit sugars, or as Dr. John has suggested, that's the fructose. Fructose, natural fruit sugars, have a phenomenal impact and phenomenal benefit to our bodies and systems. And it probably interacts with us in a format that's different from white sugar, now. And, when you talk about foods and the combination of foods, now it would probably, all naturally grown products have sugars in them. And we digest them differently. We digest them in such a way that they can profoundly impact our health, whether there's a surplus of one or surplus of another. So at the end of the day, we're looking for balance in terms of taste, balance in terms of health and benefit, balance in terms of value of use. And also, there's a balance in terms of how long it stays in your body. Because, sugars that stay in your body longer than they should add a burden to your body. I believe add a burden. So the sugars that stay in your body the least period of time, and it doesn't interfere with your elimination, then that's the perfect sugar. That's the perfect sugar. So the question comes down to, from Chef, you're the food combiner with hemp. Now, overall, how have you found hemp to work with sugar? Is there any studies or analysis for that?
I've never looked into it. I've never seen any studies or analysis on that, at all. We use it as an ingredient. So whether we're creating a hemp oil, or a CBD infused oil, or a butter to cook with, that's basically as an ingredient that would go into anything, whether it's a sweet item like we have these apple roses that we do, which are basically just a pastry dough with apples and a little bit of honey or maple syrup in it. And, we bake them up with a little bit of our hemp butter in it, and we're all good to go. So I've never looked at it from that perspective. On the other side of it, we see herbs, for example, like oregano, that people sprinkle on their pizza. And there's taste benefit to that oregano, as well as I'm sure there is other benefit to that oregano as well in a health-wise. What we did is we worked with the taste profile of oregano, and we took the hemp and we made it taste like oregano, so you can get the benefits of CBD while your body is still tasting oregano. The same thing with our rosemary Jane, the benefits of CBD while your body is tasting rosemary, right? We have rosemary Jane pan roasted potatoes, where you take the pan roasted potatoes, sprinkle some rosemary Jane on it, and now you're getting a dosage of CBD as opposed to just rosemary on there. And you can mix the two. You can actually mix rosemary with rosemary Jane, and it pretty much tastes identical. So it's an interesting thing if you wanted to get both the benefits of the rosemary and the benefits of the rosemary Jane and CBD. But and doctor, you can tell me if I'm right or wrong about this, but one of the benefits of herbs and spices is through the olfactory senses. So in other words, the terpenes, the benefits of terpenes will come through when you smell them, right? So when you smell lavender, it makes you feel a certain way. If you eat lavender, it's a very different experience. So terpenes have a very beneficial effect depending on how you bring them into your body. Lemons, or limonene, for example, is another one. The terpene where you'll have a very different feeling when you scratch a lemon peel and smell a lemon, and it's like, oh my God, it smells so good. Or when you taste a lemon, right? And you've got that sour lemon taste, that you're experiencing. So terpenes get into our system two different ways. It's through smell and through taste. And what we're doing with the hemp is we have now created a hemp product, a cannabis product that does both taste and smell to give you the same olfactory benefits when you smell it, but also the taste benefits when you eat it. I can't tell you that the medicinal benefits of rosemary, if rosemary has medicinal benefits when you ingest it at that level in the body, would be the same or different than CBD, but I can tell you that CBD has a very different effect on the body than rosemary does. So, it's a very interesting, it's a new product. No one's ever done this before. That's why it's patent pending. It's a product that, we work really hard to accomplish. Again, there's no additives or chemicals in it. It's all rooted in molecular gastronomy. And the way that we do it is through something called ambient osmosis. Once we've brought in the actual cellulose of the plant down to a certain level. So, and it's been lab tested, and it's 100% clean and doesn't test positive for anything that, for example, would be in rosemary or oregano.
Very, very good comment. Now, I think we're at a really interesting place here, because I'm confirmed, I believe, that all foods have healing components to it. I don't even think we've even scratched the surface in terms of what food combinations or what foods out there can have such a miraculous healing benefit for us that we don't even know about it. And so what does that mean? And food combinations. Now, we know that some food combinations are just remarkable. When you combine them together, they have such a taste that you just get, I mean, who would have, I mean, now this is off the scale, but, let's just say pepper and chocolate. Pepper and chocolate. Now, pepper and chocolate, and there's a great healing elements to pepper and chocolate. Also pepper and ginger. Or chocolate and ginger, but just like something like chocolate and peanut butter. It tastes great. I don't know what the elements of healing they offer, but from a research perspective, what foods out there, if you combine them together, can give you such a benefit? A replacement for a headache. You take a dose of this, and I know one, but I'm convinced, I don't know if you've heard of it, it's called propolis. You know propolis? Propolis is an ingredient which is the essence of honey. It's the essence of honey. It's an old-fashioned remedy, but I'm convinced that this propolis, we have a consultant that works with us, and she markets it, but I'm convinced that this product is the cure for the common cold. It's the cure for the common cold. A sniffle of propolis, even if your throat is scratchy, cold goes away. I'm serious. I mean, and only CVS carries a couple of markets of it. You got to look on Amazon to find some. But I'm not bragging. But yeah, I'm only saying that though to say that there are elements of foods that if you can do the research and find out. So, and I say that to say this. When it comes to Dr. John, we're back to you. When it comes to, we're looking at sugars. And I think this is a great place to be. Sugars, the analysis of sugars, the surplus of wrong sugars can be, to some extent, I know, Jeff, and you corrected Jeff on being poison. Raw sugar probably has more toxic impact on our bodies than the simpler sugars or fruit sugars or vegetable sugars. And all products grown have sugars in them. So the consequence is, what sugars should we actively claim and consume over ones that we dismiss outright? And so I'm listening. So you guys are the profound experts. Dr. John, in terms of what you've understood about sugars, what can you share with us to let us know? And you've broken them down into six sugar categories: fructose, sucrose, glucose, and those were, I remember. Yeah, but what are you in terms of sugars? And now, because sugar, from just the additive component, is basically, it's only what, 30 years old? I mean, 50 years old. How long have we been using? How long have people used to use honey? They used to use, I mean, going back 60 years, 60, 70 years, was honey. There was naturally made sugars. And then, in fact, alcohol came out of the development of sugars, I think. And it has something to do with that. But what I'm doing is three things. I'm fishing, I'm absorbing, and I'm just talking. And you share with what you will, please, Dr. John.
The main problem with sugar started when we started adding what is called high fructose corn syrup.
Okay.
And that is the major ingredient in almost all the soft drinks and in sweet items. Many people confuse the sweetness of the sweet item with sugar by itself. The natural sugar or white sugar is glucose plus fructose. The fruit sugar is glucose plus fructose, that is sucrose. Now, whether it comes from sugar cane, whether it comes from a fruit, there is no difference in the body. It is digested into glucose and fructose before it is absorbed. So to me, I don't want to brand a particular sugar as bad. It depends on the quantity that you consume in a given meal or a given day. Every cell in the body can use sugar, glucose, for energy. And fructose is necessary for some specialized functions in the body. That is why nature put it in fruits, because human body needs them. Your blood is typed into different categories, A, B, and things like that. That is based on the fructose-based sugar. There are needs for fructose in the body. There are certain molecules which need the fructose molecule. So the question is not how the sugar enters the body, but how much. That is where the problem comes in. So we have to make sure that we clarify that from the beginning. But high fructose corn syrup, they are more sweet. So people can get addicted to the sweetness. If you are used to 1 teaspoon of sugar, if somebody puts no sugar in your coffee, you will immediately know it and you won't like to drink it. The same with all the salt is the same way. If you are used to high salt intake, the food will not taste good if you are not having the salt in it. So then it comes to the feeling you mentioned earlier. How do you feel with certain foods? That's based on your previous experience. When you walk into your home, to your mother's home, the moment you get the aroma of her baking, you remember your childhood, you remember the cookies you used to eat, the bread she used to make. That smell is based on your memory of association of happiness with this food. And your brain retains that. That is why when you smell whether it is oregano, whether it is rosemary, you know immediately what it represents based on your previous experience. So these are all combined. You cannot separate the smell from the taste. Just to give you an example, when you have a cold, the food doesn't taste as flavorful. Why? Because your nose is blocked. You cannot have the aroma part or the smell part of your flavor. You can still taste salt and bitter and sour, but not the full flavor. So as the chef said, it is a combination of the smell and taste with which you enjoy each and every bite of your food.
Okay. Now, is high fructose corn syrup, that's an artificial preservative, right? And how old is it?
It is about 50, 60 years old, as you mentioned. That is when they started adding, because you can get more sweetness from less quantity.
Okay, I see. But I mean, in terms of that, is there any studies that indicate the negative benefit from high fructose corn syrup? I mean, versus the natural syrup?
Yes, it depends on the quantity, how much you consume. You can get away with a small amount, because in sucrose, the glucose and fructose 50-50. In high fructose corn syrup, the fructose concentration is higher than the glucose, 55-45. So that's why it is called high fructose corn syrup. But the basic molecules are the same. But because of the intensity of sweetness, people tend to drink more.
I see. I see.
I think I'll say, the challenge with high fructose is that so many items that we buy commercially now have high fructose corn syrup in them. Our bodies cannot digest that amount of sugar. It just doesn't happen. That's why we have such a horrible obesity problem. It doesn't matter if you buy Ritz crackers or if you buy a candy bar. High fructose is prevalent in almost everything. And I actually make sure that I do not buy anything with high fructose corn syrup. For me, it makes me feel like my body's been poisoned. And the same thing as white sugar. I guess, my sugar tolerance within my body is much lower than most other people's, even though I love sweets. But the sweets I love are naturally with natural sugars that are different, and I don't overdo it. I think, that's one of the things that, and I actually had been overweight for quite a while. And all I did was cut sugar down. Didn't even cut it out of my body. I just cut it down. I started using sugars that I knew my body metabolized better. And I've lost a lot of weight. You can see, so, I feel that, it's a high fructose is a big problem.
Okay. Doctor.
Yeah, Jeff, let me make one comment. I'm not trying to criticize what you just said, but the term sugar, blood sugar is glucose, not fructose, not anything else. That is what you measure. And that the primary source of that sugar is not natural sugar. The primary source of glucose in our blood is the grain product, the complex carbohydrate, whether it comes from rice or wheat or corn. When they are digested, they release enormous amounts of glucose, which is absorbed into the body as glucose, blood sugar.
Oh,
so the easiest way for you to reduce your blood sugar is to reduce the consumption of grain-based products. So just keep that in mind. I'm glad that you lost weight, but you could do it faster by cutting down on grain products because they add more glucose into your system.
Yeah, that theory of all the foods that we eat probably produce a different type of sugar as a result that your body processes. Like grains, after they're digested, produce a glucose different from something from fruit that's digested that produces glucose. Those elements probably could have a positive or a negative, impact on your body. So I mean, theoretically, that it sounds like that makes sense. And Carol Brown wanted to know about sugar and sugar substitutes. I mean, there are a lot of sugar substitutes out there, and the impact on you. I mean, Dr. John, you may know that. I don't know. Dr. Chef Jeff, you probably don't. You don't sound like you use any kind of those things in your food preparations. So wow. What's your comment, Dr. John?
Well, first of all, there are no studies to show any long-term beneficial effects based on, based on artificial sweeteners. None.
Okay.
There are bad effects. And even animal studies, after a while, they gain more weight on artificial sweeteners. The same is true for human studies. In the long term, they're not only not good, but they can be harmful. So who is getting benefit from non-nutritive sweeteners? So you can.
The people that sell it.
The problem is we feel, when you go to a party, somebody will say, oh, this is not sweet, you can eat more. Or this is not sugar, so you can eat more. So you feel complacent. You start eating a little bit more because you feel, since you are sacrificing the sweetness, you have the capability, you can have more. I would rather what Dr. Chef Jeff was doing, use natural sweeteners. If you don't like cane sugar, you can still make it sweet with honey or other sweeteners that he is proposing, which is fine. But stay away from artificial sweeteners because they have not been shown to do any good as far as I can see.
And there are also there are a
Okay.
lot of alternative sweeteners that people are just learning about that are natural. For example, monk fruit. So there's a difference between monk fruit is a sweetener that I'm just starting to play with right now. It's very different than using something like aspartame, which is a chemical. And you don't want to put a chemical. For me, I don't want to put chemicals into my body. Like I said, chemical and additive free, pretty much everything that we try to do. So you
Okay.
can always look for alternative sweeteners that, and I'm sure that the glycemic values are very different. And if you're concerned
Sure.
about the sugars, you should look into those and see, what those glycemic values are and how they might benefit you.
Right. Here's another question, though. I mean, it's curious. After the CBDs or hemp is digested, I mean, because it has to be digested, does that turn into sugar? And what are the impacts of the hemp sugar? I mean, I don't know. I just a question. I mean, it's a curious position. Does it must turn into sugar to be digested.
Well,
and the impact
it turns into something called 7-hydroxy. I don't know that that's a sugar. I'd have to defer to the doctor as to whether or not that is an actual, whether or not it actually digests into a sugar. Like any herb, I don't know that herbs metabolize into sugars in the body.
Elton, you are confusing the term digestion. Digestion means only breaking apart.
Okay.
When you break it apart, that does not mean you're changing the molecule. You're just separating them.
Okay.
All these chemicals don't become sugar for absorption. They can be absorbed as is.
Okay. They can just be, you say, but it depends on how you use them too, because the body has
iron. Iron is absorbed as iron, not as sugar.
Okay.
Vitamin D is absorbed as vitamin D. So digestion means separating them so that the molecule can get into the body. So it doesn't have to go through the sugar molecule to be absorbed.
Okay. All right. Very good. We've we've covered a lot of ground on this. I didn't want to go off kilter, but I'm going to have both of you just give us a chime in on last minute. Chef Jeff, I really appreciate you contributing your support of your food and the combine of your food development aspects. So thank you for that, Dr. John. Now, this was an off the mat discussion. It didn't, it wasn't, how can I put it? It wasn't meant to, negatively impact anything, but it was more out of an understanding, out of an awareness, and also out of a direction. Because, I mean, there's a lot of branding and personification that needs to take place in food cultivations. And if foods are to be the healing element that we know they can be, we need to understand them better. And more research needs to take place so that we can get greater healing benefits from food and in that regard. So with that being said, Dr. John, you're amazing always. Thank you so much for your participation. And you answer every question without dilemma or concern in an effort to get healthier day by day, point by point. So with that being said, I'm going to hand